Hey everybody, welcome to the West Dakota Dad. My name is Cody. This is my podcast where we talk about faith, family, and life. This is episode number 22 with anxiety. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I and my daughter were headed to Fargo to see some of her family. And I've been to Fargo many times before, nothing new there. The only thing that's new is this time my daughter's coming along. You know, she's not even a year old yet, so she's still pretty young, and before COVID or anything, so there was no worry about getting sick. But I remember on the way down, we had gotten the subject of anxiety, and I think she had mentioned something about, she was feeling anxious about something, but she couldn't figure out what, and so I had asked the question, well, what is anxiety? Because I wasn't sure I fully understood it or knew what it was. I knew that many people suffered from it, but I wasn't sure what it was. And so I think she gave me a definition that, it's discomfort, it makes me want to run away. She wasn't comfortable in her own skin. And so I was like, okay. I wasn't sure if I had experienced or related to that. But I think if you ask 10 different people what their definition of anxiety is, you'll get 10 different answers. I don't think anybody experiences anxiety the same. But before we were heading to Fargo, rewinding here a little bit, there was an article out, a news story that a little boy had been tossed from the balcony of the Mall of America. I mean, just tossed. Some guy came up, he was standing next to his mom, guy came up, picked the kid up and threw him over. Like, what person in their right mind would ever do that? And now that I'm a dad, and at the time I was a really new dad, anytime I'd hear stories with resulting in children getting injured, or an accident or a fatality or anything like that, it hit me times 1,000 of what it would beforehand. Not because beforehand I just didn't, think about it. No, it still was pretty impactful then, but now that you know what the love for your own child is and everything, like, you instantly think about putting yourself in their shoes and being like, oh my gosh, if that was my daughter, like, I'd be wrecked, So, I mean, the story just crushed me. And now we're going to a big city with my daughter, and I know Fargo's not a big city, but from where we're at, yes, it's a lot more population, a lot of more people I don't know. But I've been to Minneapolis, New York, Orlando, Denver, Vegas. I've been to those places, so I know what a big city is. And after a while here, after I figured out what anxiety was, I experienced anxiety in those big cities. But anyway, so now we're going shopping in Fargo, and we're at the mall, not the same mall, obviously, from the story, but we're at a mall, and my heart just started racing. It started racing. I was shortness of breath. I was sweating. I was just basically like white knuckling my daughter, like paranoid, looking over my shoulder and everything. And I remember my wife was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know." So I told her what's going on. She's like, "I think you're having an anxiety attack." And I said, "An anxiety attack? Okay, well, this sucks. Like, what do I do? Do I go to the hospital?" She's like, "No, So eventually I just, took some deep breaths, and I was kind of distracted, and eventually let somebody else hold my daughter in our group, and I was fine. But yeah, it was bizarre. After that, I had realized that I had experienced anxiety before. I experienced it in high school, with sports, trying to fit in, worrying about what other people think, the next test coming up, what am I going to do for the future, and stuff like that. And then, obviously in college, I experienced it. When I was in different big cities, I experienced it. And I kept wondering, like, what in the heck triggers your anxiety? And so recently, I had read this book by Dr. John Deloney. He's a Ramsey personality, called Redefining Anxiety. This book is about what it is, what it's not, and how to get your life back. and it's a great read. It's only about 60-some pages long, and he puts it in terms that you and I would understand. You don't have to be a doctor to understand what he's talking about here. The very first thing I enjoyed about this book is the very first page. Before he even gets into anything, he has a Bible verse. Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. That's pretty true. I mean, think about when you have anxiety, it just feels like there's something sitting on your chest almost, right? And God wants to take that away from you. You know, he can handle it. Put that on him. Let him take this weight off you so you can live in comfort. So I'm not going to go over the whole book because that wouldn't be fair. But I do want to take just a couple key points out of here. One, he defines anxiety as your body's alarm system, okay? It's your body telling you, hey, I'm not comfortable. Something's up. What's going on? Tell me. Talk to me. Let's figure this out, okay? That's what essentially, in a nutshell, he defines anxiety as. And, okay, what's an alarm system? And, you know, me being an electrician, you know, you get instruments that will say alarms. Well, one way you can do it, you can just go into the menu and go, clear alarms, bingo. Easy as done, okay? Can I do with that? And can I do that with anxiety? Not quite as easy as hitting a couple buttons. You're just going to have to take a look at the situation, you know? For me, looking back at this story, I realized that, for starters, I was a new dad. I'm a protective person over my child. Human nature, I'm sure. I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to go with it. 2 is I read that story about a kid getting thrown off. So that's in my mind. We're at a mall. Same type of place that happened. One-story mall, so my daughter wouldn't be able to be thrown from a balcony or anything. But nonetheless, my daughter could get taken from me. White knuckling her. Got it. Check. And number 3 that I didn't talk about, we went through active shooter training before going to Fargo at my work. What to do in case somebody decides to come shoot up our work. So now I'm paranoid. I think everybody's an active shooter. Not going to act on them, of course, because that would just be wrong without anyone actually being a threat. But my mind was constantly scoping around if there was threats. So I had all this stuff going. And my anxiety was just going crazy. So, yeah, another thing that I'd like to point out in this book that he mentions, anxiety isn't something you are, it's something you move through and experience, which I think is also important. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh, I have anxiety. You know, not like I'm experiencing anxiety, but like that's anxiety on my shoulder or in my brain, full-time anxiety, which sucks because they might be experiencing anxiety often, or their alarms might be going off crazy, or they might experience attacks more often. But you aren't anxiety. It's something you're experiencing, and that is powerful, which means you are able to control it, but first we must identify where it's coming from. Is it something in the past? Is it something in the future? Is it your environment? Is it the people around you? Is it, you know, past trauma, or is it finances? Is it sports? You know, I mean, it can be anything. Is it a past decision that you're worried about the outcome of? Those are all things that can result in your anxiety. So, yeah, I do have a couple verses here. First one is from Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Okay, cool. Yeah. Don't be anxious about anything. Got it. That's like telling water not to be wet. True. But what's the next part? In everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Ask God for help. You got to have a group of people around you to help you get through this. You got to have, in my opinion, you got to have something of greater power, a God, my God, that will help you get through this. Okay? And then lastly comes from the Gospel of Matthew. Chapter 6, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, I believe. Chapter 6, verse 34. So don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. And I think that's nails it right there. We often think about the future too much, and I'm very guilty of this. Where do I want to be living in 5 years? Will I have the home of my dreams? Will I have enough for retirement? Will I be able to, be there for my kids and eventually see my grandkids? Will I be able to be healthy enough to play sports with them when they're in high school and in their 20s? Worrying about that. And then you got the other side of things. When people often can't let go of the past. Like, if only I would have done this, we would have been state champs, or if only this happened, or, if I only didn't do that, or if this didn't happen to me, let's worry about now. The past is the past. The future will have its own worries. Let's just worry about today. Let's get through today. Because there's enough for today that our alarms will be aware of, if that makes sense. We got our own worries for today. Not to say that every day should have worries, but let's just focus on the present. Let's be present. Let me watch my child actually grow up and not worry about what she's going to be in high school. She might not even like sports. She might not like music. She might not like anything that I enjoy. But let me just watch her grow up. And being able to grasp that that's where you need to be, is in the present. Obviously, you don't want to completely neglect the future, because your decisions now can eventually affect your future. So, but just don't drive yourself bonkers planning and thinking so far in the future that you can't see what's in front of you. So that's what I had for today. I hope it helps. I know that there's a lot more complexity to anxiety, but like I said, not that I'm a spokesperson by any means or anything, but I like to help people. And if this book can help you, I would pick it up. I think this book would help you, so I would pick it up. Maybe that's a better way of saying it, but Redefining Anxiety by Dr. John Deloney will help you kind of walk you through what you might be experiencing. So if you have anxiety out there, you are not anxiety, you're just experiencing it, which might sound really lame. Anyways, you're not alone. Let's just say that you're not alone. Everyone can experience anxiety, and I don't want you to feel like you are tagged with being anxious. It's something you're experiencing, and we can get this under control. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys all have a great week. Until next time, I'm the West Dakota Dad.
Thanks for listening to the West Dakota Dad podcast. If you like what you heard, please drop a rating, share with your friends, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any content.